footy. As always, we're going to start with the ladder, of course, Joey, and it's the two Queensland clubs firmly entrenched inside the top four after a 19-point win from the Suns over St Kilda today.
Yeah, a couple of big winners there. So, as we've been saying on repeat now, I think it's 6 weeks in a row that these 8 teams haven't changed outside the top 8. They've changed positions, but when I look at these teams, Kingy, for me, most of them in there, I think, and the reason why they're so successful is they know who they are as a club. You know, Brisbane was a great example. They know who they are. Collingwood know exactly who they are despite injury personnel. The Gold Coast Suns have worked out who they are, and that's why they're flying. Geelong, we know, and there are a couple of teams, I reckon the Western Bulldogs do.
Yep.
I think there's some teams, and we'll touch on Hawthorn, that maybe aren't quite exactly sure who they are.
You mean like in terms of their
just knowing how they play? Yeah. What is our DNA?
It's a
what
great
is our DNA?
Point, and we'll get to the Kangaroos versus Collingwood later on.
We certainly will. We'll flip over the page. You mentioned you got a few doubts about some clubs. Any of there sort of take your fancy in particular as well? Fremantle
are clearly the ones. Yeah, they're the ones that have kept their season alive, and we've all thought all season long are good enough to be in the top 8.
Shouldn't be there in the first place.
No, exactly right. Yeah. They've put themselves in this situation, so they don't have to give themselves much room to move, but their best footy is absolutely good enough. And Essendon, credit to them. They've beaten all the teams they should. They took care of Richmond, but the percentage tells a bit of a story, and their draw does get a lot tougher. And Melbourne were the big winners today, just giving themselves a sniff, but there are a few other teams we'll touch on in a minute that it's awfully hard from here.
David King, your first crack, lead us off.
Well, I'm looking fairly and squarely at the Hawks, and I think they're a happy team at Hawthorn, but are they too happy? Ooh. This is a team for me that's... It's got an injury list that really only has a couple of players on it of note. Will Day's a big out, I get that. But every club's got one or two big outs, so I'm not factoring in the injury list at all. These guys put on celebrations after celebrations last year and played some fantastic footy. And I think just expected it to roll on into 2025. Now, they're still in a pretty good situation with wins and losses, but they're a shadow of what they were last year. There's something's just off at Hawthorn. Now, I don't know if it's between the ears or whether it's the mechanics of how they want to play. It's a bit rusty at the moment. And the easy answer is to say, look, it's only round 11. Yeah, settle down. We've got 3 months to fix this. But you just said that yourself. Most of the teams in the top portion of the ladder have a rusted-on identity, and it's tinkering with in the back half of the season, not necessarily getting rolling again. I just think there's too many luxuries allowed to the opposition, and Brisbane are an excellent team. So if you're a Brisbane fan and watching this, just have a look at how they're able to get punished onto the scoreboard or under the game in a short burst. But you can just see what's happening with Hawthorn. They're unorganised behind the ball, so they have one player short defensive side, and it causes this cascading roll-up effect. So the communication's not there. You've got serious senior players behind this. So everyone talks about, Sicily out of form, Barras, and we'll get to those guys individually in a moment. But this started because of the back of the stoppage wasn't complete. Now that's a full team obligation. Neil does a great job here. Cuts them off at the pass, sends them back inside. And then for whatever reason, they can't handle the heat. They couldn't find a mark, couldn't handle the heat. Now, this is a team that shot the lights out last year. Zorko back through. We know what Zorko's going to do. What's Weddle doing? He's half gambling. You're not going to kick it to him. I've got him under control. All of a sudden, you haven't. It's just little luxuries that have crept in across the board. It's a casual defensive model. There's no real urgency. Like rolling off Cameron there, I'll get this done. With a laissez-faire approach to defending or to dying for the cause. I don't see the midfield that don't have the same hunger. You've got Weddle just off the back of Cameron here. Now, I know this young bloke's been thrown around a fair bit. That's Jaff on this occasion. Your man is Cameron. So are you defending or are you going back to get possession? I think they've just got to... They've got to shift the mindset at Hawthorn across the board. Contested possession, since post-buy last year, they were 5th, now they're 11th. Clearances, 4th, now they're 16th. I look at their damage. The damage is gone at Hawthorn at the moment. Their ability to punish last year was unbelievable. They were the best in the competition post-buy last year. Now they're sort of mid-table. They've become a very average team, hence their position on the ladder. And if you go to the individuals, this is the best and fairest top 10 from last year. Mm-hmm. Now, there's small margin decreases across the board. There's 3 of the top 10 that have had marginally better seasons. But 7 of your top 10 are poorer performing than one pre-season ago. So we're not saying it's a one-person problem, but it's a full team fix.
You speak about the hype. Are you sort of saying you think this football club or these players have got ahead of themselves? That's what I think when you say that.
Yeah, well...
Is it a hunger?
I think only they know. And are they honest enough to sit down and call it out? Because good clubs sit down and say, hey, eyeball one another, you got to fix this, you got to fix that, let's get going, let's get our head out of our you-know-wheres and get rolling again. Because they can seriously play. They should be higher than what they are on the table right now. There's no doubting that. And I just think they're wasting a great opportunity in a very even season.
Well, they'll find out over the next couple of weeks. Look at that, it's a tough run. Collingwood, Western Bulldogs, Adelaide, they are top weights. So there'll be interesting matches for Hawthorn. Are you all right, Kingy?
Just a little frog in the throat.
The reigning premier, too strong for Hawthorn, as you pointed out earlier, Kingy. Just on the slide earlier, but it was the Charlie Cameron and Archie show which took your eye.
Yeah, everyone's looking at this forward 50 saying there's no Joe there, who's going to fill the gap? The gap's going to be filled by these two. It's as simple as that. They can both get forward, they can mark the ball in the air, they can sit on heads, they can do it at ground level. When they're on like this, you almost feel Brisbane are unbeatable because it's the type of ball that they can win that not many others can. And the score involvements were huge, but just sheer scoreboard influence, these two hold the key to the Brisbane Lions' fortune this year.
They were brilliant, but I reckon they were given some luxuries by the Hawthorn defence. And you mentioned it earlier, and we've spoken a lot about James Sicily, and he's horribly out of form. And you mentioned the word, I thought the word was perfect, the casualness to the way that they are defending, and I think the way they use the ball at times as well. But just watching Tom Barrass, you just wonder what he's trying to do at the moment. And I just wonder if he's a bit confused because there was a lot of goalkeeping going on with his performance on the weekend where he'd just sag off and he'd sit back. And I'm wondering whether he's at this club to be an interceptor. Is he to play as the lockdown on the opposition's best forward? What is he? Because at the moment, they're just out of sync. Because when they're actually one-on-one, and Sicily's a bit the same boat, when they're in one-on-one contests, they're pretty good because they're very good footballers. Mm-hmm. But there are times when they're just getting caught in no man's land and they're just not quite on the same page. And it's really exposed a bit of a gap in their game at the moment, King. And I just wonder if it's something that they can fix in season because Barrass looked a bit bereft of confidence in this game, not sure what he was doing. And when you see his numbers, it's one of his poorer rated seasons he's had in the last 6 or 7 years.
Did they get what they paid for?
Not at the moment, no. He came in as being the big difference. We spoke about him and Battle being the premiership keys to this Hawthorn side. And at the moment, you're wondering whether that's causing some of the problems with their back line and what it's done to Sicily and the effect it's had. I don't think it's had the desired effect at this stage. Still time, but not quite what they were hoping.
Well, they've got a big 3 weeks, the Hawks, so he'll certainly be in focus. So is the high free kicks always in Hawthorn games when it comes to those small forwards?
Well, I just wanted to show this one clip. I thought this was really ironic because this was Zach Bailey getting a free kick for the old sort of drop the shoulder and that. But I just want to watch the Hawthorn players. Look how many of them complained they weren't happy with the decision. There were 6 of them that argued with the umpire. I would have thought if any team was going to applaud Zach Bailey and say, hey, that's smart play. Smart play, draw the free kick. Well, maybe be Hawthorn, but I just thought it is interesting because it is a talking point, King, at the moment. Yeah. Players that are trying to draw free kicks, it's back in vogue. There are more of them doing it. And now we're seeing some umpires penalise the player for high tackles and other times the players getting penalised for holding the ball.
That happened early to the Hawks. I reckon the Hawks are getting umpired differently to other teams. And Dylan Moore, I think, is case in point. He had probably 2 or 3 through the night that were paid against him rather than for him, which would have been the case in weeks gone by.
It was a quick reaction from the Hawks, so they were certainly all over it.